Okay, so here is a brief introduction to summary of authentication tokens and how they work. So the authentication tokens are it's a way of identifying a user, and it's a way for the client to claim to be a particular user, and the server then to decide if that claim is valid. And so the authentication token will help the server know whether that claim is valid. And those tokens are created using JSON web token format, which is an industry standard, which makes it really convenient. And basically what this does is it lets you, these tokens are URL safe, meaning that they can be passed in a URL. There's no special encoding necessary. As you can see here, this is an example of a JWT or JSON Web Token. It consists of three parts. The first part's a header, as you can see here, separated by a dot, and then the payload, which is the content of the token, and then the final part here in the blue is the signature. So tokens are signed by a server using or client, either one. Somebody signs the token with a secret key, and then somebody who's going to either decide whether to accept that claim that's part of that token is going to use the public key to then determine, hey, was this token signed appropriately, and if so, then I'll go ahead and trust it. If it's not, if it's signed by somebody else or not signed at all, then I can say, no, I'm not going to trust this claim. They're claiming to be the admin user, and I'm going to look at that and say, no, it wasn't signed by me, so that's not okay. So this example here, you can see how it's encoded here. And what's encoded is, well, here's the header information. Here's the payload. This is just an example here. And if you were to change this payload here, you can see how it changes the JWT token contents. Just like if we change the signature here, you can also, this is the signature here. If we change that, then this signature part will change as well. Now, BBJ services, when you install it, it will create a unique secret key that it means that whoever has that key then will be able to generate tokens that are acceptable to someone using that key. So each BBJ services installation is going to be unique. So if you present a token created by one BBJ services to another BBJ services, it's not going to accept it. One of the cool things that we did do was we did set it up so that you can copy that secret key from one BBJ services installation to another one, and that file is called jks-private.json and jks-public.json, and that's located in your CFG directory. So if you copy those two files to a different BBJ services, then that BBJ services will accept tokens from the other one, and vice versa. So that's how the tokens work. Hopefully that makes that much more clear. Now, as far as how we use them, so now you know what they are. How we use them is let's take a look here at some sample code. This is probably a good way to understand it. What we do internally is we don't store the user and password in memory, and you can't access it once a user is authenticated. So what happens during authentication is, here's an example using the admin API right here. I'm asking the admin API factory to create an auth token for me, and I'm passing in a user and password, and then it's going to return a token that looks very similar to that auth token that you just saw there. Then you can use that token to connect to the admin API, which is this next line. So instead of using a username and password now, we are connecting with an auth token. That token does have an expiration date and time, and let's see here. The date and time is configurable under security settings, authorization, token default, expiration in minutes, so 8 hours basically right here. So that's a default. So in this example here, this sample code, since I didn't provide a an expiration override, it's going to give me a token that's only valid for 8 hours. If I want one that's valid for a year or 2 years or something that I might want to put into a configuration file, then you can override that and specify a different expiration date and time. But in any case, so as you see, I present that token here. That token could be used also to make a connection using the ODBC driver or the JDBC driver. So instead, as an example with the JDBC driver, instead of passing in a user and password as part of the connection string or connection properties, you would pass in token equal whatever the auth token is instead, and then you can establish a connection that way. Something else about tokens is, as I said, they expire, and so this line here shows you how you can renew an existing token. So if you were going to use this inside your application for authentication purposes, you might create a token when a user logs in, discard the user and password so it's no longer in memory so nobody could get to it. Then that token you might keep around for a while, and maybe every time you go and make a new call to the admin API, which maybe that happens every few minutes or every hour or whatever, you could actually renew that token and get a new one if you wanted to. So that's an example there where you would always have a nice fresh token with a new expiration time on it and that kind of a thing, so it's a convenient way to do that. Make note that when you do renew or refresh a token, it has to be valid. It has to be a valid token, and it can't be expired itself. So you have to renew it before it's invalid. And then, yeah, so here's another example here, then using just that new token that we have. You can also, using the admin API, you can get the user that was used to connect, whether you connected directly using a user and password or whether you used a auth token. So if you use the auth token, we can extract that information from the token, but you can't extract the password from the token because it's not part of the token. And again, let me go back and point that out here with the JWT. As an example, BBJ tokens, well, let's create a token here because that would be another one. Then I can show you what they look like. Okay, so over on the Authentication Tokens page, which is under Security and Authentication Tokens in the Enterprise Manager, you have a list of tokens that have been created, and you can see their expiration date and times in there. This page allows you to select one and you can invalidate it if you want. So I can click that and that token's no longer valid. So if somebody presents it, it'll be rejected. The one that's highlighted in red here is the one I'm currently using as I'm connected to the Enterprise Manager. So that's letting me know, hey, you can't remove that one because that wouldn't make sense. That would kill our connection. Notice you can't see the tokens. There's no way to get a token once it's created. It's presented, you create the token, and unless you store it somewhere, there's no way to recover that, and that's for security purposes. So the interface here in the admin API allows you to create a new auth token, which would be basically the same as we looked at in that sample code there. So I'm going to pass in a username and a password. You can write in the number of minutes that you want it to be valid, so I could put that in there. And then I can also add some additional payload to the token. That would be additional name value pairs that would be encoded in that JWT. I'm not going to put anything in there right now. Well, yeah, let's do that. Let's just do foo equal baz, just so we can see that. And then we're going to click generate token. And as you can see here, it generated a long token. And let's go paste that into here just for fun. So we paste that token in here on this website. And you'll notice this website doesn't have my secret key, and yet it's able to decode the contents of that token. And that's okay. You never want to put anything sensitive in the token itself, like a password. As you see, there is no password in here. It's that signature that was used by that secret key, and in our case, our signature was generated here as it was able to determine it was generated using a certificate. And so it's that the signing by the creator of the token that says, I trust the contents of this. So this says, I am username admin, that it was created at. That's the indicator, the standard indicator created at. That's a timestamp, and then when it expires, and then some other information that who issued it and so forth. Um, so it's that signature that says, hey, if somebody gives me this token that says they are user admin without a password or anything, then since it was signed, I can say I trust it. And again, that's why you don't need the password encoded in here. And as you can see, since the password is nowhere to be found, you can safely put this token in a configuration file and not have to worry about somebody compromising that file or something like that. So that's the gist of how the authentication tokens work and why we use them. Again, once I close this panel after creating one, there's no way for me to get that token again. Uh, and then if I generate another one, then it will be unique also. And so, uh, yeah, I think that should cover it.